lived in housing provided by the university. It's a thin line you had to walk. We weren't off campus, we were on campus.
Where would you meet?
Our fraternity house was on campus where the tennis courts are now. Those buildings they tore down, those 7 dorms were fraternities and sororities.
Oh, so you guys were all clustered together.
We were all clustered together.
So
yeah.
Did the parties intermingle? Did people walk
Sometimes.
through the party? Okay.
Sometimes. We met, actually our fraternity meetings were held in the student center. Most of the fraternities had meetings in the student center, but you had fraternity houses.
What were some of the activities of your fraternity, social activities, activities that might have helped the community?
Yep, good question. We did community service projects. All of us were required to do that. And our pet project was the Norris community.
It was, okay.
And so we would get together, groups of students, we'd bring them to the house, we'd have sessions with them just talking about college and encouraging them to do well academically. There were times that we would chaperone them, groups of kids, to football games, to basketball games. So we were intimately involved in the community.
Were there a lot of kids in the community at that point? I mean,
we're talking about maybe 20, 30 kids.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Were they mostly college bound, or had they considered coming to Commerce as a...
Probably so, because at that time I knew quite a few students who had graduated from Commerce High from the Norris community who were going to school here. That was just the way it happened. Most of those students came to school here. And so those younger kids probably saw the kids who were coming here as students as their role models.
Okay. And so that kind of helped get them here.
Were you aware of the Black Panthers working in the Norris community?
No.
Did they have a presence on campus that you knew of?
There was a group on campus. It was called ASSET, African American Students of East Texas.
Yeah.
And actually they would meet. It was similar to the Black Panthers to some degree. They're I guess you could label them as radical. It wasn't really radical, it was a sign of the times.
But it seemed radical here. What was their dress? The same kind of look that we see in the it's the era.
It was the era. We all had afros.
They were the edge, though.
Yeah, they were.
So what was the feeling in the fraternity with respect to the kinds of things that ASSET was involved in?
Well, actually, I started attending some of those meetings prior to joining the fraternity. Their ideas were more radical than my experience. Meaning, if we have to take over a building and barricade ourselves in to make sure that people hear our demands, and that's what's going to happen. Went to those meetings, heard all of that, agreed with it, but at the same time knew that I was here on a mission. I was here to get a degree, and that behavior would ultimately get me suspended from school, and then what do I do?
What were some of the demands at that point?
Particularly, they wanted more African American staff and faculty.
Okay.
Because at that time, you're still talking about J. Mason Brewer and Dr. Talbot.
Well, they had, according to the records, they had some success getting people like these. So I mean, I just continue that mission. Makes sense. But they weren't arguing for Black history courses. They weren't making any statements with respect to the Norris community at that point, or?
Not to my knowledge.
Okay.
No. Interestingly, I took one of the first African American history courses that they offered.
Yeah? Who taught that one?
I do not remember his name, but he was not African American.
What did you think of that?
Actually, that came up, that was an issue. There were friends of mine who I still know, and I've got one of my good friends who was in that class. I go to church with her, so I'm going to talk to her about that.
Yeah.
One of the big question we had, and this guy's presentation was ideal, because we walked in the class assuming we would have an African American instructor. It was not. And so this guy started his spiel. I know every single one of you are expecting me to be African American, but I'm not. He said, but here's the deal. Here's who I am. Here's what I know. And once he gave his spiel and how he studied and how he's lived, he lived in predominantly black communities, he said, I am, without walking in your shoes, I'm about as black as I can get. But I can never tell you what it feels like being African American, because I'm not.
That was an important thing for him to say, right?
And he said, here's the issue. I'm here to teach, and I know what I'm talking about, and I'll never give you my opinion. I'll give you facts. I'll give you information that I've studied. I'll give you resources so you can study it yourself. But if you think that I'm not that person, you need to withdraw from this class.
Did anybody? Did you notice?
I'm sure they did.
Okay.
Yeah.
Were there white students?
I just don't remember.
Yeah.
My money says yes.
Okay.
Let's change the tape.
Okay. Okay. Yeah, I'm reading more and more about this asset group.